Okay. Dogs. We got dog camera set up. Alrighty. So, welcome. Right, do you have anything to add to that, you big dork? Nope, nothing. Then, how about one of these? Bam! Woo! Okay, welcome to Houston with a Problem. Intro off. Haha. I did it before you reminded me. Well, man, lots of news. Elon bought a 9.18% share of Twitter after saying he might start his own Twitter competitor. But then I think he saw how DWAC, Truth Social, is a complete failure, and how all their developers have quit. And was like, no, why start something new when I can just do what I did with Tesla, which is buy an existing company and pretend like I started it. So yeah, he bought a big chunk of Twitter. Centro bought a big chunk of Mullen Automotive. Metamaterials bought a big chunk of Plasma something or other in the UK that does similar metamaterial film printing stuff. And there are no shares to borrow for GME. So GME has no shares to borrow. It was slightly green. I've not checked it in the last 20 minutes or so. But yeah, still slightly green. We're still at 169. Most everything except for AMC was green today. AMC is just kind of bouncing right about where it opened. But there's a bunch of green across the board. Yeah, Emeren climbed again. Did another weird giant climb. Emeren's a weird one, man. So looks like we got some drop in crypto happening. Dogecoin was normally they all follow the same graph, but Dogecoin is doing its own graph today, which is weird. And then the other big news is that we now have evidence that Russia's committing genocide in Ukraine, and that's not going to bode well for them. It's gonna result in probably not just economic sanctions, but a full-on embargo, and that's not good for the Russian people. So expect to see those oil prices start to climb, because I think Europe's going to cut off Russia from oil and just be like, sorry, Europeans, you're going to have to just deal with high gas prices for a while because we can't support genocide, and that's coming. So you have been warned. Okay. I think that's all I had to do on the outset. Right, guys? Okay. Hey, there's Casey Chapman telling me to turn off the intro. Yes. Joe says Metamaterials purchased UK Plasma app for $20 million. I think what they really wanted was they wanted either a specific machine or a specific patent, and that's what it's going to cost. It looks like they're trying to consolidate this nanomaterials market, and they are purchasing everybody who has something that they want, and they can easily start licensing this stuff or making their own. I think they're very viable as a patent troll in the future, kind of like intellectual ventures, where they can make all these patents, and then whenever someone uses it, they go, you owe us a licensing fee, and can make a great deal amount of money that way, let alone they can produce their own stuff to put on things. Okay, curious one. Could it be that DRS isn't about locking up the float at all, but an equivocal ape-oriented vote to ensure majority over split dividend vote this June? Just a thought. I think apes already have a majority to vote on that regardless. Whether they're in DRS or not, it's going to pass, because anyone who's long on this wants that. They're going to make a fortune off of it. So I think it's a no-brainer to pass during the shareholders meeting in June 7th. Is that the date of it? I think it's June 7th. So 2 months. I'm okay with that. 2 months, and then perhaps 30 days after that is when they make the date of record. And so that'd be sometime in July, which is right about the time the AMC shareholders meeting would be. And then then we get some cool stuff. I think right now all these big funds institutions are like, ooh, we have basically 2 months to figure this out. So they're going to be tiptoeing. You're not going to see much short attacks. You're not going to see much buying for at least a little while as these folks try to figure out a game plan. Because the hedge funds know that they're going to get obliterated. They're trying to figure out if there's a sneaky way to not get obliterated, and they're brainstorming. But I don't see a way out personally. Lost waves, thank you. Case Chapman, wondering why people aren't more excited about the GME stock dividend. I'm a majority AMC holder, but it seems like the GME dividend is the final nail in the coffin. Or am I missing something? No, I think you're spot on. The mainstream news seems to be quite muted. They aren't really talking about it much at all. They will. They won't be able to avoid it soon. But yeah, I think a lot of folks don't quite know what to make of it or how to spin it quite yet, and that's why you haven't heard peep from the mainstream news. The pure chase. My thoughts since I got into this is that no one knows what the highest squeeze price will be. Likely not 1 million, but sure as hell not 72 or 300. I'd rather have more shares to game it out, even if GME likely have a higher probability of reaching higher prices. Yeah, GME is going to rocket like nobody's business this summer or later this spring. Yeah, so we're just sitting and waiting, like always. Sit and wait. Collect more if you can. If you can get calls, get calls. That's the way it works. Reddit Saber, Casey, that's my interpretation. And really, we're only voting on increasing the potential float size from 300 million to 1 billion, not the dividend itself. True. It's the float size, the economic, what do they call it? The economic outlook 2022 or whatever. That's what we're voting on. And once we say, yeah, we can make it 1 billion shares potentially, then the board goes, slamma, jamma, dividend. And they do giant award. Martin Weiss, Norway just announced that Svalbard will get a customs office for the first time ever. This is to ensure that Russia cannot use it for trading under the radar. And remember to turn off the intro. Interesting. I didn't realize that Norway wouldn't have a customs office at one of their major ports. Interesting. The UN talks tomorrow about war crimes and human rights violations with Russia. I think this is where the UN can possibly remove Russia from the Human Rights Council and even remove them from with their with their permanent position on the Security Council, which is a big one. I think Ukraine was very smart back in February to bring up the argument like, hey, the USSR had the permanent seat on the Security Council. Once the USSR broke up, why did Russia get to keep that? There's nothing in the documents saying that Russia would get it if the USSR broke up. So why does USSR have this power, or does Russia have this power? I think it is be a great way for the UN just go yoink. Sorry, Russia, you no longer get this vote. Oh, also, Iran announced they're close to a new nuclear deal. Hey, look at that. My crystal ball is powerful once again. So it sounds like we're going to reach a nuclear deal with Iran again, and Iranian oil will start flowing. So we've got oil now coming out of Venezuela via Chevron, and we're going to have oil coming out of Iran via this nuclear deal. So we're going to be able to make up for whatever losses we have from the 7% of oil that comes out of Russia. The big thing is going to be natural gas. How do we get natural gas to Europe? There needs to be more liquid natural gas ports, liquefied natural gas ports, especially in Germany. That's going to take a couple of years to build. And the fact is that Norway is a gigantic exporter of liquefied natural gas, and they're right across the water from Germany. So why isn't there a port or a pipeline or something? It's always baffled me. So that would probably be a wise thing to do. if any Norwegians are in here that have anything to do with pipelines or liquefied natural gas. Okay. 1-800-LAWYER-UP. Is there any way short hedge funds limit the size of the squeeze when GME issues the stock dividend like they did with Overstock? Thanks. Love your streams. I don't know if they will have the power. Like, the collective internet consciousness was not focused on Overstock at the time. And even then, Overstock still, climbed from pennies to $160 or whatever the peak was. So I think the fact that retail investors are completely honed in, just like laser beams, on this stock means that the shorts are not going to be able to get away with this stuff. Folks who had invested in Overstock are like, oh, sweet, my share is worth 160. Time to sell. We already are worth 160. We're starting from a much, much higher floor than Overstock did. We've already seen 480. So, anything below that isn't even close to a starting point for where this can go. We're pissed off. We're resolved. And we're pretty much in lockstep about buy and hold. So there's no way that these guys are going to be able to combat that. And they're not going to be able to draw it out because the way the rules are situated is they basically have like a day. From when this dividend is issued, they've got like 1 day to provide the equivalent in everyone's accounts. And they're not going to be able to do that. So there's probably going to be a share recall simply because the way a dividend like this works is that they have to open the ledger and do a count of who has legit shares and how many are out there. And there's some really big tax implications for those who have lent out their shares. If you are long on this stock and you get the share as a dividend, you're not taxed until you sell that share. And when you sell that share, you're taxed at 15%. But if you are long on this stock but you lent your shares out, whatever you receive from the hedge funds as a payment in lieu becomes taxable at 37%. So a lot of these funds that want to avoid huge taxes are going to have to recall their shares unless they want to pay out the nose. My guess is that sometime between when there's a vote and when the date of record is recorded, there's going to be a massive recall of shares by everyone who's lent them out. And if you are holding your shares in a brokerage, in that brokerage, you happen to have shares that were failure to deliver, so you have FTDs in your account, you are still going to get shares as your dividend, just not necessarily from Gamestop. The short hedge funds, the market makers, the ones who created those synthetics, they have to provide you shares and not the cash equivalent. It has to be the shares. So they have to go out and buy. So let's bring up the calculator. Let's do a little math. All right, calculator. There you are. Okay, so, whoops, clear all that. Let's say it's a 7-for-1 split, right? So there's 76 million shares. And we're making it 7 times higher. So it'd be a total outstanding shares of 532 million if that's the case. So about the size that AMC is now. Okay. Now, that's cool. That means they're going to be making 425 million, 460 million shares or so, and that's how many can get printed and dropped into everyone's accounts. Blah, 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 blah. But if there are a billion synthetics out there, we know what 1 billion times 7 is, which means 7 billion shares are going to have to get purchased. 7 billion shares have to get purchased. There's only the 1 billion, 1.4 billion synthetics plus the 530 million legit shares that will exist at this point. They have to somehow buy every single solitary share that's in existence 7 times to make up for it. They're going to have to recall. They're going to have to buy up whatever exists prior to that dividend coming out because you can't try and buy 7 billion shares when there's only 1.4 billion to 1.9 billion of them in existence. So you're going to see these, especially these smaller hedge funds, are going to start covering now before any more news is made and anything's official. They're going to go out and they're going to be closing their positions at just gigantic losses, because a lot of these guys shorted at $5 or $15, and they're now going to be paying the $170 plus premium for every single one of those short positions they made, because you either pay $170 to $200 now, or you pay $10,000 to $100,000 to $1 million 3 months from now. That's why, everyone is right now. They're like, they're like hemming and hawing. It's like you didn't see much action today at all. It just kind of was level. You didn't see any short attacks. You didn't see any big buying, because people are trying to consolidate and figure out where they can get cash, how they're going to deal with this, and they do have a few weeks of leeway to get their plans together. But that 7 billion number right there, 7 billion shares, if there's a 7-for-1 dividend, no one has that kind of money. 7 billion, if we're at 7 billion, and let's just say when the squeeze happens, it only goes $10,000, right? Okay, you're looking at 100, 1,000, million, billion, $70 trillion of liability. No one can afford that. That's just at $10,000. So we're going to see squeezing happen, I think, either before a vote or just after a vote, because no one could take care of that. If you created 1 billion shorts out there, and now you're going to be responsible for 7 billion shares to buy, you're screwed. Absolutely screwed. So this is why GME is going to be the fuel for that rocket, because if they're closing on this and they don't close enough and they get screwed, they get liquidated, and everything is up for grabs. Basically, this is the entire global GDP in one stock, because these guys fucked up for the last 30 years. And that's, I mean, try to just let your brain wrap around that. I mean, this is ridiculous. Actually, no, it's not even 7 billion. It's 8 billion, isn't it? Because it's not splitting 7 ways. You have your one share and you make it 7 more. So it might be 8 billion. So it might be $80 trillion, which is the entire global GDP. Whoa, yeah. So it's even worse. So much easier to try and close out what's there now. And we knew that what's there now is awful and could result in share prices of $100,000 or more. So now multiply that awfulness by 8. No one can handle that. It's going to be absolutely just brutal. It's brutality. Just Viking warrior stocks is what we're going through here, and that's the name of the game, man. They fucked around. They found out. Okay, where was I? That was Lawyer Up and J. McGill or J.M. Gill. Houston. News: NASA confirms over 5,000 exoplanets. Ooh. I can't wait for James Webb to get up and running. So excited. About a month until official first light for James Webb. I really do. I'm curious to see what they're going to point to that. You got about 250 billion objects you can point to that. So I'm not going to be able to take that guess. Although some odds makers in Las Vegas should probably figure out what they're going to point James Webb at first. Take bets. Okay. Casey Chapman, does the dividend change your price target at all? Not really. It makes it worse. Because again, trying to cover 1.4 billion shares is brutal. Or trying to close 1.4 billion shares. Trying to close 7 or 8 billion shares, or if it's 10 to 1, 10 billion shares, is going to be impossible. They're not going to be able to do it. And yeah, so we should start seeing some closing by small funds here soon. Okay, Stonk Onator. So I bought $1.50 May 20th call for Hexo. What's the worst I can lose? Whatever your premium was on that $1.50 call. That's the worst. So I don't know how much you paid for it, like $7 or something. That sounds about right. Yeah, so that's as much as you can lose. Excuse me. Water. Sad Boy Incorporated News. Happy birthday, Houston. How much precious metals are in space and how could we bring them back to Earth? What would it do to the price of metals and metals markets on Earth if they were accessible soon? There's so much more metals in space than there is on Earth. It would crash the prices of metals all over, for one. Unless a De Beers type cartel formed that limited the amount of material they would give access to. But an iron meteorite, 500 meters across, decent size, half a kilometer across in all directions, has more platinum in it than has ever been mined in human history. A 1 mile across iron nickel meteorite has upwards of $100 trillion in gold. The asteroid belt has enough iron in it at today's prices to make every human being, all 8 billion people alive, worth $100 billion. That's how much iron is in the asteroid belt. There's so much more material in space than there is available on Earth. Like, the Earth has a huge amount of metals in the core, but we have no way of getting to the core. You just can't get there. It's too hot, melts every drill bit we can make. No human being can survive the 1,000 degree temperature. So you can't even bother. So how we would get that stuff at first would probably be from near-Earth asteroids that we would either set up a mining operation on one of the asteroids, and every time it passed by Earth, we would, ship out ore. Or the more dangerous version would be trying to capture a near-Earth asteroid and put it into Earth's orbit. The problem with that is you fuck up, one of your retro rockets messes up, and then you just crash that sucker into Earth and you end civilization entirely. But we'd probably have to build a space elevator or equivalent, because that would be the only economic way to bring that material down to the Earth's surface without killing everyone. Because otherwise you can just throw it at the Earth's surface and then everyone dies. But, your chunk of metal made it. And there'll probably be lots of operations in space to... I think a lot of the manufacturing, a lot of the refining of the ore and a lot of manufacturing will start to happen in space, because you have 24-hour-a-day energy from the sun when you are out of the Earth's shadow, and you can collect that stuff, you can focus it, you can melt things, you can do all sorts of crazy stuff up there. So we'll probably see a lot of manufacturing move to space for essentially the free energy. There's a lot of things you can do in zero-G and in vacuums that you can't do here on Earth. Bezos has alluded to this, that he has plans on setting up factories in space eventually. But if one group manages to monopolize space mining, then precious metals won't change. Those metals will all be the same price they are now, because you have to make it economical. And if you got to control the prices, you're going to control the prices. If multiple groups, if the Chinese go here and the Japanese go there and Bezos goes here and Elon Musk goes there, if there's actual competition, then we may see a crash in prices as the world gets flooded with metals that were rare before, but all of a sudden aren't anymore. And then Russia will become a pirate nation, because their entire economy is based upon metals and petrochemicals, and we'll be getting all of our energy from the moon and all of our metals from asteroids, and they won't have an economy anymore. I mean, they don't have an economy at the moment. It'll be even worse than it is now. And they will use the 1967 Outer Space Treaty to avoid prosecution, and they will rob everybody, because that's what they can do. 1-800-LAWYER-UP. Thank you for providing a great answer to my question. I promise to send you something cool post-MOAS. Keep being you. You're good people. Fantastic. Thank you. Whoop, get a little flood here. Bill Coyne. If there isn't enough money, your best play is to sell out during a rise, but before the actual rip. Yeah, probably. The rip may cause issues, because I picture the rip happening, hedge fund gets liquidated. Whomp. the prime broker, investment banks, those guys are out of money. Once those guys are out of money and the insurance policies are out of money, trading will stop for a moment while the Federal Reserve and Treasury and all those guys go, oh my, we need to print more money than ever printed on Earth and dump that in these investment banks because the entire economy is going to collapse. So they're going to print, dump, and then the investment banks get that money and then give it to us. And then trading stops again. Because they have a round of money. They got to do it again. And they give it to us. And they ran out of money. And they get it. That's probably what's going to happen several times. Is that they're going to run out of money and they're going to have to figure out ways to get that money, and that trading will just halt. So you'll see the price just rip, trading stops, maybe it flatlines or it drops off because there's no buy pressure, and then all of a sudden it rips again and flatlines because they run out of money and it drops. We might see looks like a mountain range going up to where the actual peak is, and then once they've bought everything they need to buy, it's going to fall off a cliff. So I don't think there's going to be any back end to that curve. I think once the trading computers have bought everything they need to buy, the buy pressure vanishes and the price of that stock collapses. So if you have the ability at some point, I don't even know if puts would be available, how they would trade, or what. But if we're coming to the end, buy some puts. if they're even available. I doubt they'd be like, the stock's trading at $1 million and there's a put at $900,000 for $1 a share. I doubt that's going to happen. But there still might be, $400 puts out there trading for a penny. You can buy thousands of those, and as that thing goes, once it passes the $400 level, you're just gonna make a pile of money. So that's, if that's available, I would totally, I'll try it. Why not? Okay. And Chakuseki, where do golems go to find prostitutes? Answer: an whorehouse. Anywho, lots on short hedge funds suing GME regarding splits similar to lawsuits with Overstock. They'll try, but the thing is that they won't exist or be able to pay lawyers to do that. It's one thing to still exist and have a legal team and pay to sue. It's another thing to cease to exist, not be able to pay a legal team and try to sue. So that's going to be what makes or breaks on this one. Bex, hey Houston, happy birthday. We've seen the new QSIP play with Torchlight. A new ticker still didn't set things off. What's the difference about GME? Well, GME is a big company that more people pay attention to, and the stock price is more than $1. So that is the difference with GME. The Torchlight preferred share hasn't really gotten anywhere yet because they haven't actually offered the dividend associated with it. That is what we're waiting for. They can pretty much do whatever they want with something that trades at $1 and change, and no one's really going to care. But if that $1 and change results in a $50 dividend, all of a sudden people are going to care. And so that's what we're waiting for on that. What are you staring at me for? What do you want, monkey dog? Do you want a blanket? What? What do you want? What do you want? Make up your mind, little dog. Go. Get in it. Go. There you go. All right. Dog in a blanket. Oh, she wants to do her Emperor Palpatine impersonation. There you go. Yes, yes. Feel the hate coursing through your veins. Yes. Right? Right. There. That's more like it. There's our Emperor Palpatine. Okay. Plop. Okay, where was I in the questions? Going through the NASA question. And then there was precious metals question for Sad Boy. Here we go. All right, back to where we were. Justin McCorkle, Houston, if MMTLP is what you need to get a dividend, will metamaterial also run with it in the event of a nice dividend announcement? That's my theory. Because if you created shorts of Torchlight, those Torchlight shares spit out the MMTLP dividend. So there could be 1 billion shorts that were created from MMTLP. I don't know how many, 100 million, who knows? A lot. And so a lot of the MMTLP shares people have are synthetic. Those eventually convert over to Oilco, and when a dividend's announced or given out, it's going to go to those legit MMTLP Oilco shares, and then all the ones that are synthetic will need a payment in lieu. And that is where a lot of folks are going to fail, because they're not going to have, if it's $40 and there's 1 billion of them, that's $40 billion they got to come up with. Hedge funds don't have $40 billion. They have, enough here and there to make a play. They may have 40 billion in margin at some point, but they don't have 40 billion in cash. So if they can't pay that dividend, they get recalled. They're in default, and they get liquidated, and they got to get liquidated until they can pay that back. And then they got to provide the share that they shorted, which was a Torchlight share. But because Torchlight shares don't exist anymore, it means they're going to have to buy metamaterial shares. And then so metamaterials will run after the dividend either gets delivered or doesn't. So with Overstock, it took about 3 months. With the merger of Newegg, it took about 3 months. So my guess is they'll announce a dividend, it gets issued, and it might take 3 months or so for that sucker to really build for metamaterial and the price to go up. And then, it squeezes and then the price comes back down again. That's my guess, best guess. Ravfrog, wouldn't it be in the interest of the Fed or government to force the squeeze as soon as fallout is on them? The funds have nowhere near the money needed. No one has the money needed at all. So I honestly don't know how they would print, $80 trillion. I'm sure we'll read stories about how Ryan Cohen is the world's first trillionaire. It may only last for 2 weeks, but very likely that would be the case. They're like, oh my goodness, Ryan Cohen is the world's first trillionaire. And now he's worth back down to $5 billion or whatever. But I don't know. A squeeze like this has never happened. So whatever comes of this will be novel and new and will be written about in history books, in finance books, in business books for centuries to come. They will talk about the GameStop squeeze, the MOAS, 500 years from now, out of what weirdness will come out of this, and what, maybe the government will eventually be like, look, we got to step in and we're just going to cut a check for 10,000 a share and just leave it at that, or whatever it is. I don't know. And so we're just kind of sitting and waiting. If anything, it's going to be the greatest show on earth. Whatever comes out of this, we're going to be glued to our computer screens and our television sets and our phones, just reading and watching and seeing how this unfolds. I'm 90% sure we're not going to be super screwed over. But there's still 10% of me that thinks might be. Oh, my power just blinked. FYI. So it was really breezy out there earlier. It looks like it's kind of calmed down. So if I'd suddenly disappear, it's because the power went out. So be warned. All right. Okay. Where am I? Where am I on those questions? Okay. Josh Walker, do supernovas or black hole collisions result in elements like Einsteinium occurring naturally? No. The highest metal that occurs naturally is uranium, and those have only happened in collisions of black holes and neutron stars and in supernovas. Anything above uranium on the periodic table was man-made and created in a laboratory using neutron guns and proton guns and collisions of particle accelerators and stuff. So we're still looking for a stable element beyond uranium. We have not found one yet. Most of them have like crazy short half-lives of nanoseconds and stuff. But we're trying to see if there's like a next step. We can create a weird heavy metal that's stable and not necessarily an isotope somewhere, atomic number 205 or whatever happens to be up there. But we haven't gotten there yet. Colin L. I signed to sell my house on Friday. Was going to dump into some GME options. Think we'll explode before then. I have a feeling that this week is going to be a lot of like nail biting. And that people are going to be figuring out what they can do. And we might see like slow increase over the week. But I don't think we'll see big short attacks. And at least not until Friday when they try to keep a bunch of shares out of the money perhaps. But again, if you're shorting a stock at $170 and you all of a sudden become liable for 7, 8, 10 more shares every time you short that thing, it's not a viable solution to a long-term problem. It might fix it for that day, but come July, you're effed in the A, man. So I don't see big price explosions quite happening this week. There's some folks that do TA. They're like, oh, we'll be at $500 by Friday. I'm not seeing it yet. I think everyone's still trying to like gather their senses and figure out what's going on. There may be some short hedge funds, smaller ones, that just are like, you know what? While this might be the lowest it'll be for the next 5 months, let's pull the trigger now and get out of this. So, regardless, I think whatever the price is on Friday, it's going to be higher after that still. So, if the price is $500 on Friday, you might be able to buy a $900 call or something for cheap. And that may be what you do. Chakuseki CLW's interview of Tobias Demi did HBO GME documentary was awesome. I think you two would have a productive conversation too. I'll check that out. I have not seen the HBO documentary all yet. So people are like, oh, you have to watch episode 2 now. I've not seen it. So maybe tonight or tomorrow I'll get a chance to watch it. I should be on, I think, with Lightning Warrior tomorrow, maybe Wednesday. And then I'm going to have Josh Hamilton on Friday to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of The Gist, me going on The Gist. So we'll talk to him about the book he's writing, which it's got to be frustrating trying to write a GME book knowing that like the ending is still unknown. Like, oh, well, I wrote what I could. Now I just got to sit and wait for the ending to happen before I can write that out. But yeah, so I'll be on Lightning Warrior sometime tomorrow or Wednesday. We haven't quite set that in stone. And then I'll have Josh Hamilton on here on Friday. The Aviation Channel gave me some coordinates, some tropical coordinates. No, sorry, not tropical. We are European coordinates. Sorry, I'm total doofus. Where are we going? Click on that. Click on the Google Earth. Open the Google Earth. Bam, bam, bam. There we go. We're flying. We're crossing continents and oceans. We are landing in the UK. We are right there. We're next to a Wikipedia thing, so it's got to be something interesting. We are Norwich Castle. All right. We're at Norwich Castle. Okay, we got ourselves, looks like what used to be a moat. Now full of grass. Moats are gross, because moats were just like where everyone just dumped their shit. Okay. Where are we? We're in Norwich Castle. Can we climb in? Can we climb all the way into where this point is? Right here and see what we're going to see? What do you got for me, Norwich Castle? Oh. Oh, here we go. Oh, we're in a little gallery. Look at you. Norfolk, a sense of place. We can tour this little museum here. Fantastic. All right. Show me this art. What we got? We got some sceneries. We got some art. Can I go into other rooms? Oh, I want to go that way. I want to go that way. Yes, take me to the desk. Whoa, whoa, what? Okay, what do we got here? We can learn about different pieces of art. We can put some puzzles together. Someone lost something. Lovely. This is kind of cool. Now I have no need to go to Norwich Castle. I've been there. This is the map of Greater Norwich. Norwich School are just painted Norfolk, the rest of Britain and Europe. This map shows Norfolk places depicted in the works of art they showed. Oh, so the works of art here, and they put them on the map. Cool. Well, that's kind of groovy. I dig that. I like it. All right. Go back to Big Houston. Bitcoin. Don't forget, all shorts could squeeze AMC, GME, thousands of other shorted stocks. Some insane amount of money will be needed to pay everyone, like $900 trillion, which means no one gets anything possibly. I mean, that's true. I mean, if the world just throws up their hands and goes, guess what? We're just going to cancel ownership of everything. That would be a forensic accountant's nightmare. Or, you know, can you imagine, like, they issue the 900 million trillion whatever dollars out. They go, we just got to keep printing, print. And we're all billionaires. And then they go, all right, here's what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to, like, do a reverse split of the US dollar. And we're going to make $1 million equal to $1, and we're starting over from there. That might be the solution. So that we go from billionaires to thousandaires again. I don't know. But I'm curious to see which billionaires cease to exist. That is really... I want to see who put their money into these short hedge funds. And when the hedge funds get obliterated, they have nothing. I'm sure a lot of them still squirreled money away in like offshore accounts. But the thing is offshore accounts then get invested into hedge funds. And so they may lose what was in those offshore accounts. I'm really curious to see like which houses in Norwich, Connecticut get sold. Which places in Beverly Hills get sold. Which places in Miami Beach get sold. All at auction. I'm really curious. I want to know who is on the bad side of this, whether they knew it or not. You know, they play golf. Their kids go to private school with a hedge fund manager. That guy's like, hey, you want to invest in my fund? And then they go, sure, whatever. And they just sign it over, a giant check, not even caring what happens with their money. And then one day they wake up and it's just gone. They get a call from the Securities and Exchange Commission or FDIC or someone, and they're like, hey, so just so you know, this hedge fund no longer exists. So-and-so is going to prison or bankruptcy or whatever. Sorry, that's it. You're done. Here's a check for $500,000 for what was insured in your account. And that's it. Okay. Reddit Saber. Houston, if I sell my shares to average in the millions, but buy one back in the millions and sell that at the bottom again and realize losses, how would that affect taxes owed? You're only allowed to claim $3,000 in losses. So if you took $1 million in losses, that would suck. In order to be able to claim more than that, you have to set up a fund. A family fund, a holdings company, something. So that's why, like, you know, you'll see Ryan Cohen Ventures. Ryan Cohen Ventures is the family fund for Ryan Cohen's investments. It's this holding company. So if he wants to have giant losses, he can write off as much as he wants. You, as an individual, only get $3,000 a year. You might be able to make it $3,000 a year every year for the rest of your life, but that's at most. That's all you can do. So that's why you don't want to do a wash sale like that necessarily, because you can only claim $3,000 unless you create a company. So, yeah, there you go. Legacy 10 Productions, Houston. How are islands like Bainbridge that depend on groundwater for water supply going to fare as the globe heats up? Okay, oh, back to some maps, man. Exit Street View. We're zooming out. We're zooming out. We're leaving this little burg in the UK, and we are going to fly across the world. Whoop, whoop, ah. There we go. I'm going to zoom in. Okay, so pretty much all of this area on the west side of Puget Sound. So you got Seattle over here. This is the Kitsap Peninsula, Bainbridge Island, where I live. We have a gigantic rainforest on the western slopes of the Olympic Mountains, this little mountain range here. Our groundwater feeds from the snow melt that happens in these mountains and percolates through the soil and then sort of spreads out underground. So we have our groundwater here actually is underwater sources that come from this mountain range over the last several million years. Seattle also has lots of wells that kind of similarly come out of groundwater from the Cascades, but they also have lots of surface reservoirs and things like that. There's lots of dams along these river systems that they can also draw water from. Any place that requires the surface water will be doomed a lot sooner than the folks that use the deep groundwater. Now, if we use up too much of the groundwater and it can't be recharged fast enough via whatever sources of rainfall that happen with these mountain ranges, then we could be screwed. But as long as there's trade winds, there'll be several hundred inches of rain a year on the western slopes of these mountains, and that would still result in lots of groundwater coming through. The snowpack will be greatly affected, and the snowpack is really important for a lot of water sources, especially behind dams. The snowpack, that melt. So if we don't get a lot of snow in the wintertime, then it just becomes quick runoff. It doesn't get trapped behind the dams by June like we like, and we could lose lots of electrical power because Washington's like 96% hydroelectric power from all the dams that are in the area. Now, other islands, like get a little further south, you got Vashon Island here. Vashon Island is actually out of range of the groundwater that comes from the Olympic Mountains. And so Vashon Island actually has a law that says if you're going to build a house on Vashon, you have to tear one that already exists down. So there's basically no new construction that can happen on Vashon without destroying an already existing house. So their population really can't grow because their groundwater can't support that. Because they don't get the groundwater outflow of the Olympic Mountains like everybody else. So they're in a little different situation. And then you've got places like the San Juans that are in a bit of a rain shadow. If stuff's coming directly from the west, they're in rain shadow of Vancouver Island. If stuff's coming directly from the south, they're in rain shadow of the Olympic Mountains. And so they may run into some groundwater issues as a result of if things dry up and heat up here compared to others. But as far as islands in Puget Sound go, Bainbridge is probably the best situated for having groundwater still. There's some really deep wells here. So the house I grew up in is a little log cabin right near the bay here, on the other side of the road. And we had a hand-dug well that was 17 feet deep. And it was like the deepest hand-dug well that passed inspection during the 87 drought. But all of our neighbors, like across the street, they had wells that were like 1,000 and 2,000 feet deep that they had to drill way down into the aquifer. That's expensive. That's really expensive. But like we were weird in that we kind of lived in a bog. So we had a lot of water, a lot of mosquitoes too. But our neighbors across the street weren't quite as boggy, and they had to drill really, really, really deep wells. So now I'm on a municipal water supply. I still live in this end of the island, but I'm on a county water supply. I have no idea where our well is for that. Not a clue. But we've had any problems. The south end of the island ran some issues. They've got a municipal water supply also on this end. And apparently their well ran dry this summer when we went like 70 days without rain. That's not good because there's, 6,000-7,000 people that live on this end of the island and suddenly not have water is like sludge. So they may run into some issues if their wells aren't as deep as the wells that are up north. Yeah, think about that. Wonder what they're going to do. Okay. There we go. Unpaid overtime. How does a currency reserve split happen? One of my friend told me it happened in Romania in the mid-2000s, and the currency cut 4 zeros. Mexico did it, maybe 20, 25 years ago with the peso. I think Turkey's done it before. I'm not sure exactly how it works. I think what they do is essentially, cut zeros off of things. And as you pay for stuff, you get the new currency back. So if you've got a 1 billion Zimbabwe dollar note, and you buy a loaf of bread, you might get a $5 Zimbabwe note back. And that's probably how it would work. I mean, think about how did nations switch over to the euro from the French franc and the Deutschmark or whatever. Slowly, like you had a window where you could pay with the old currency, but as you pay with the old currency, you're getting the new currency back. So that's becoming the dominant currency in circulation until they no longer accept the old currency. That's probably how it's going to roll, if they have to do something like that. Because it's just a pain in the butt to have to go buy a stick of gum for $20 million. It's much easier to just lop off 5 zeros, 6 zeros, whatever, and go from there. Where am I? That was the islands question. Drew, does there have to be a share count before the stock split meeting? I think the count might come after. Because once they announce a dividend share, then it has to be recorded in the ledger. And the ledger, they got to open that thing up and do a tally of who owns what. And that's when we'll probably see share recalls, be my best guess. A Lost Waves with Super Chat didn't tag my question. Ask your question, Lost Waves. I'll read it. I scroll down and I find it. I'll read it out. Sincere 206. Did you see Sears up 222%? Yeah, Sears is being weird. If Sears wasn't in the professional market, whatever they call it, the expert market, it would be getting day traded like crazy right now. Because who would want to buy, 1 billion shares and have it go up 122% overnight? Daphne, hi Houston. Can you give us a brief full overview for people new to this? Where we have been, where we are headed. Will the MOAS peak share price be as big before this upcoming dividend? I think I touched on that a little bit. So, brief history of the world. Short hedge funds realize they can make really quick gains by destroying companies. So if you short a stock that's at $50 and you can short it down to 0, you can get $50 for every share you sell, plus never have to pay it back because the company now no longer exists. Cool, and you don't have to pay taxes on it. Even better. Woohoo! They did this for 30 years at least, with the way the electronic trading system fast works with the DTCC, the clearinghouse that kind of runs the whole show. And these short hedge funds could essentially print all the fake shares they wanted to help drive the price down. So if you have 100 million shares that exist and the shares trading at $50 a share, and they borrow as many as they can, they sell them and hoping that the price drops. But the price might not necessarily drop because there's still only 100 million shares in existence. They go, oh, how about I create 1 billion shares and I sell those? And we dilute the stock price, and so the stock price will have to fall, and it falls from $50 to $25. And they go, okay, I made $25 off every single one of those shares. Let's try shorting another billion. And they short it down, make another billion shares. They short it down, and now it's $5 a share. Like, oh, sweet. I got a couple billion extra shares out there. Let's get that sucker down all the way. So I'm going to print another 2 billion shares. And they sell 2 billion more fake shares. They drive that sucker down to a penny stock. What they do is they take They get their friends on the board. They have that once on the board, they start destroying contracts and stop investing in updating retail spaces or R&D, or they make sure that warehouses get closed or real estate gets sold off, and they give themselves huge cash bonuses, or they hire consulting firms like Boston Consulting Group, BCG, to do really expensive consultations. Those consultations involve things like selling off assets, like, oh, you're going to pay us $30 million, and then we're going to tell you to sell off everything you own, because it'll make the board members a lot of money really quick, and that just completely destroys the company. And once that happens, then they declare Chapter 11, stock price goes to the pink sheets, and they forget about it. They move on to the next one. So they were trying to do that with Gamestop. They're trying to do that with AMC. They're trying to do that with Bed Bath & Beyond. They're trying to do that with BlackBerry. They're trying to do that with a host of other companies that had been viable and now are being short attacked by the short hedge funds. And it wasn't until Keith Gill, DFV, Roaring Kitty, kind of put it in everyone's head like, hey, look at GameStop. I think this is a viable company with a bright future, but they're being short attacked. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy a whole bunch of GameStop, hold on to the stock, and refuse to sell it. And I'm going to help squeeze that company and see the stock price fly. He started doing that, and then August of 2020, Ryan Cohen was like, you know what? I think GameStop's a viable company. I just sold Chewy.com for billions. I've got a whole bunch of cash. I'm going to buy 9% of the company. So Ryan Cohen buys 9% of GameStop, and he forces his way into the board, and he starts clearing house. He gets rid of all the insiders from the hedge funds. He fires BCG. He adopts a new plan and strategy for expanding into new markets and becoming not just a retail center, brick and mortar, but to expand to the internet. They form their digital space with their positions with Loopring to create Gmerica, their NFT crypto market. And all of a sudden, the stock price starts to soar because these short hedge funds which had shorted it by billions of shares. I mean, they had admitted they had borrowed 270% of the float in January 2021, and the price just shot up to $480 before shenanigans happened, and they shut down trading and whatnot. And ever since then, we've been oscillating. Stock price flies because there are a whole bunch of failure to delivers that need to get bought, and then the price crashes again because they short attack, and then the price flies again because they had a bunch of failure to delivers. So we've been doing this for the last 15 months. And now we are at a turning point where GameStop is like, you are in my trap now, you little snot. And they are now issuing this dividend, share dividends, which will force these short hedge funds to close their positions or face trillions of dollars in liability. And so the stock price, that $480 we saw in January 2021 is going to be chump change compared to what's coming. So, hold on to your butts. We're going to make history. That's where we are. So, yeah, hope that worked for you, Daphne. There is your short, hand-wavy explanation as to why we are where we are. Because short attacks only work if we panic and sell. If we go, oh my gosh, the price is falling, sell everything. I don't want to lose everything. And we panic and sell, and drives the price down even more because more shares come on the market. The short hedge funds dump more those counterfeit shares. We panic even more and sell, and eventually drives it all down. But if they dump those shares in the market, we go, oh, sweet, shares at discount, mine. And they go, oh, shit, the price only dropped like $1. I got to dump more. Rah! And then we go, oh, sweet, more, mine. And then the price goes up $5. Like, oh, shit, we just lost $1 billion on that. With AMC, there's only 500 million shares in existence. So every time the share price goes up $2, the market cap of AMC goes up by $1 billion. Now, if you have 4 billion naked shares out there, every time that price goes up $2, yeah, the market cap of AMC goes up $1 billion, but your liability goes up $8 billion, right? And if your liability was planned at the share price of AMC at $1.55, and AMC is trading at $20 to $30 right now, you're fucked. you now have 60, 70, 80 billion dollars in liability, $100 billion in liability on just AMC. Now you extrapolate that to GameStop. You do that with BlackBerry. You do that with Sears. You do that with any company that they shorted way too much, and that liability compounds and compounds and compounds and compounds, and they're gonna get screwed someday. And we're hoping that someday happens, perhaps this summer, and we can all cheer with Dom Perignon or whatever, and they drive off in the sunset in our Lamborghinis. Right? That's the goal. Okay. Travis Wright 13. What is your take on GMOs? I don't quite understand why people hate the concept so much, other than Monsanto being cartoonishly evil. Happy birthday. GMOs. There's I consider there's two main categories of GMOs. There's GMOs to improve the viability of a crop, like, make it more hardy, more drought tolerant, able to grow in different environments, make it more nutritious, like super rice, things like that. And then there's the GMO, which is making a plant more, I'll describe it like trademarking a plant, and that stuff's evil. That's the Monsanto Roundup Ready crop. Like, Roundup is an herbicide. You spray it over a field and it kills all the weeds. But if your plant is not hardened against that, it'll kill your crop as well. So to make GMO, like Roundup Ready crops, they take the seed and they just blast it with a genetic code of this. I can't remember the other genetic code they put in there that makes it immune to glyphosate. And then they spray the fields, and everything doesn't have that gene injected into it dies. And so you can dump as many herbicides, pesticides, whatever you want in these things, and they can be hardy against that. It allows for to greatly increase mechanization and crop yields, and reduce labor costs, because you're just flying planes around spraying pesticides. You aren't out there bending over picking weeds yourself. I understand the economics behind it. The problem is that I don't think spraying chemicals on these things is good for the long-term future. And Monsanto does crazy stuff like there was a farmer in Canada, this is probably 20 years ago, a truck full of canola, rapeseed, drives past this guy's farm, and it blows seed off the top of the truck, and that seed falls into the farmer's field, and some GMO canola grows up. The farmer was not intending to grow GMO canola. He was growing his own canola. So that seed falls in his field, it grows up, and some, pencil pusher from Monsanto comes along and goes, "Hey, along your ditch is our crop. You owe us money." And he's like, "What the fuck are you talking about? I did not buy any of your crops." Like, "Well, it ended up here and you're growing it. You owe us." And they sued him and they won. That kind of crap needs to end. Plants are plants, man. Being able to patent DNA, I think, is one of the worst things that we've allowed as a Western society. It's gotten to the point where if someone discovers the code for a certain genetic illness or disease, they can then patent that code, even if it's in someone else's body, just because they looked at the DNA like, "Oh, there it is. I'm patenting that." And therefore, they can then control any therapeutics for that disease in perpetuity. So no one else would be allowed to treat that disease because they're the ones who discovered the genetic code that made that disease happen. That type of stuff needs to end. I don't think you should be able to patent life. You might be able to patent the technology. Like, "Oh, I invented the thing that injects this DNA code into a seed to make it Roundup Ready." You can patent that process, but once it's in that seed, that's life, man. It's going to do its thing. I don't think you should be able to patent that part and trademark it. So that's my beef with GMOs. Outside of that, if you want to make a strawberry the size of a watermelon, bitchin', whatever. Do your Frankenstein worst. I don't care. But if you're gonna be a dick and sue farmers because your seed blew into their field, you can rot in hell. Tristan Francis, Hi, Birthday Houston. Do you still see this bad boy going up to crazy numbers? Still also has your ladder strategy change over time or still the same? The ladder strategy is going to remain the same. If my brain is like, well, they're going to have a liability of billions more shares I have to purchase now. So does that mean my price goes up? Or because there was a 7-for-1 split or whatever, does my price go down? I might just keep it the same. 100K and then climb from there. If I lower the price, if I lower it to 10,000, then basically I just pushed my ladder strategy back by 7 steps. Because start at 10,000, 7 steps later, you're at 100,000 a share. 7 steps after that, at 14 steps, you're at $1 million a share. Whereas before, if I started at 100,000, at 7 steps, I'd be over $1 million a share. I prefer to start higher if I could. We'll see where this goes. I think we may see a couple waves of squeeze. We may see a squeeze of these hedge funds getting out while they can, and then the ones that don't because they can't get out. We may see squeeze 2.0 happen when the liquidations begin. So we get one recall, and when short hedge funds, like smaller ones, try to get out, and then we'll get one when the dividend's issued and they can't pay the dividend. Which one will be bigger? I don't know. I don't quite know yet. I have a feeling that the second one will probably be bigger. But then a lot of people may have gotten out ahead of time. I don't care as long as I retire. as long as I have enough money to put into a Vanguard and not have to worry about like buying food, paying for a car repair, I can travel, then I'm totally happy. Anything beyond that is just icing on the cake. Bond villain wealth would be fantastic. But if I find myself getting greedy for that, I know I'm going to miss the boat, dude. So I'd rather be comfortable and be able to retire than get greedy and miss out on everything. That's where I'm coming from. Okay. Bill Coyne, can you explain what cherry picking data means? Ooh, okay. Juking the stats, baby. All right. It basically means searching out numbers that can be interpreted to help specifically your bias. That makes sense. So, like, I was in this agricultural geography class, and you know what? Let's draw a picture. I got to go to that. I got to go to there. Got to turn you off. Turn you off. There we go. Okay. All right. So you guys know what a histogram is? So got brushes. Let me make this thing thick, nice and thick. Okay. So you have an x-axis and a y-axis, and let's say you're doing populations of a country. So like you do population in the United States, and you'll find the population is you have X number of old people, and you get more and more folks as the population gets younger because population grows over time, right? But then it becomes a point where, there's not as many young people being born because we're not having 6 kids per family anymore. And so let's say this is males over here and this is females over there. And so we'll get some sort of histogram that, I should make these a little longer. Some sort of histogram that's kind of equal. And, it looks kind of like a Christmas tree or something. That one should have been shorter, but whatever. We get something like this, right? And eventually you get to a point where women outlive men, so all of a sudden there starts to be more women than men at the top, or whatever. So you get some sort of histogram like this. In a developing nation, rather than, like, I can just make it sort of, that's the shape of a histogram. Cool. All right. So, in histogram of a developing nation, we can go to, Sierra Leone or Afghanistan or something. An histogram won't be quite as round like a parabola. It will be more something like this, where most of the population is under 18 years old. So this might be 18 and under here. And a lot of people died of natural causes. They may have died of war, died of famine, whatever. So, trying to find people in their 80s is almost impossible in a place like Afghanistan or Sierra Leone. Most of the population in Afghanistan was born after the U.S. invasion of Afghanistan. So over half the population of Afghanistan was not alive when the U.S. began the invasion. That's how stratified towards the youth a population like that is. Okay. So I was in the agricultural geography class, and there was a lady who was kind of a militant feminist, and I consider myself a feminist, but sometimes she just laid blame where blame couldn't be because she wanted to cherry pick stats. And so we were looking at a histogram, I think it was of Malawi, and maybe Mali. Well, somewhere where there was a famine. I think it was Mali, and she said something about 75% of those who die in famine are women and children, and so therefore it's the men's fault. And I was like, let's look at this. let's look at the population, and let's see that look at Mali, and we see that 50% of the population is under 18, and of the adults, 25% of the population are women, and 25% of the population are men. So therefore, yes, 75% of those who die in a famine are going to be women and children. There you go. So the stat you were trying to cherry pick, we could look at and say, oh yeah, so men are dying at the exact same rate of famine as everyone else in that population. It is not the fault of the men in these families that the women and children are dying. They're all dying at the same rate. Those who don't have food die because they don't have food. Simple as that. So she cherry picked the information, but you're able to suss out exactly what that means. You can look at COVID. Where is... I'm going to call this guy up. Go to open Chrome. Sorry, one sec while I try to get this crap to do. All right, there we go. Okay, so health data. Yeah. Okay, so this paper was done, and basically what they concluded was that in certain places around the world, there are more COVID deaths than are being reported. And you'll see some data like, oh, COVID isn't really affecting sub-Saharan Africa that much. So obviously they must be doing something or have some sort of genetic thing or whatever. But it turns out sub-Saharan Africa, A, doesn't have hospital beds, and B, can't test anybody. So they're actually dying at 100 times the rate of what's being reported because they have no ability to report. Only a few rich families can get tested in these places. And so the COVID data is not accurate. So you can't say only 10 people in Ethiopia got COVID. Therefore, Ethiopia doesn't get COVID. No, Ethiopia has COVID just as much as everybody else. It's that they're too poor for a lot of these rural areas to actually test people and to get treatment and do all that. So they're just dying at home. So that's kind of, that would be another source of cherry picking data. Again, with COVID, like right now in my county, if we go to KidSat Public Health, we can go to Public Health data dashboards, surveillance report. Surveillance report. I can't remember which one I want. This one. Okay, so it's showing right now Bainbridge Island is having more cases. They're at 123 cases per 100,000. And the rest of the county is at 30 cases per 100,000. Okay, this would be data that could be cherry-picked right now. The rest of the county has a much lower vaccination rate than Bainbridge Island. The rest of the county is also not as wealthy as Bainbridge Island. So now that federal funding for testing and vaccines have vanished, the only people that can afford to get tested are the rich people. And the rest of the county can't afford to get tested because they got to pay $200 out of pocket or whatever. So naturally, Bainbridge is going to report more cases because they actually can afford to get themselves tested versus the rest of the county, which can't afford to do so. So what they're also seeing this in wealthy suburbs on the East Coast, that hospitals are starting to fill up again, but only the wealthy communities are the ones reporting COVID exposures because they're the only ones that can afford to be tested. So you can cherry pick this data and say, oh, Bainbridge obviously is getting COVID way more than everyone else. But in reality, what it is the rest of the county can't afford to get tested. Therefore, they can't report anything. There's nothing to report. And so Bainbridge is a bellwether. They're 97% vaccinated, whereas the rest of the county is like 50% vaccinated. That if Bainbridge is at 123 cases per 100,000, that these areas are probably much, much higher at the moment, since unvaccinated folks get COVID at 4 to 5 times the rate as vaccinated folks. It's just that simple. But they just can't report because the government cut off the funding to make that reporting possible. That's cherry picking. So when you're cherry picking data, you have to kind of look at it cynically and go, that data doesn't seem to make sense. Why wouldn't that make sense at all? It's because of this underlying reason. They can't afford to do testing. Therefore, if they can't report anything, then there's nothing to report. And so your data gets cherry picked in that case. Okay. Did that work? Did I explain cherry picking? I hope I did. Who did I got here? Spartan. Bonjour, Houston. Be big with all these options and Tide. Can we see a squeeze? And if so, do you think it would happen before the April 14th options? Was it you asked? Someone asked me this last show. I don't know. I thought Be Big was going to squeeze in November because they were supposed to offer all those stocks like October 15th or something, and then it didn't happen. And they're like, no, we're going to do it December 27th. I'm like, okay, sweet. Start of the new year, we'll get Be Big squeeze. And they didn't give them out then either. And now they're saying it's going to happen again. I don't think it's going to happen until they finally give that stuff out. Even then, I give it 3 months till Be Big itself squeezes. That's just the way it works. Like when those special weird shares get given out, give it 3 months before the price goes up. Because it's going to take some time for the hedge funds to, the lenders to point their fingers and the brokers to shake their fists and whatnot. I think Be Big's going to squeeze big because they're shorted by hundreds of %. But I wouldn't count on April 14th. That just seems too soon to me. I think it's going to happen after that. And so if I were to buy options for Be Big, I would buy something much further out because of that. Grandpa is busy again. Aw, I know. It's windy, man. My power keeps flickering, and there's some sort of surge that turned my hot water heater off, so I'm like gross right now because I have no hot water. So I had to pump the circuit. That's circuit for that thing. But man, okay. Where are we? I'm looking for. Oh, and of course, chat resets. That's what happens. I'll go back in time here. And oh shit. Okay, I can only go to 2:00 today because my neighbor wants to walk dogs, and we're gonna try to avoid getting slaughtered by a tree if we can. So crap, I got 10 minutes. I got 10 minutes with you guys, and then the dogs and I are going for walks. Okay, so that means I may have to skip a good chunk of these suckers. I'm going to look for, was it Lotus? What was his name? Because he said super chat, but didn't have a question attached to it. So I was going to look for his question and see if it popped up here. I don't see it. Start with an L, I thought. Lost Waves, that's it. Okay. Does the upcoming split impact all the swaps? I imagine the swap, whoever's going to be left holding the bag on one of those swaps is going to be screwed. They're Lost Waves. Because it's like a game of hot potato. Like, oh, I'll trade my bad debt for your bad debt. Schwap! And then they reset the FTDs. And then 35 days later, they trade it with someone else. Whoever's going to be left holding that bag is going to be screwed. Because the government had hinted at, the SEC had hinted at basically banning these swaps from happening. because I see it as just a glaring loophole. Because if you can reset FTDs just by trading those FTDs around, then it defeats the whole purpose of having failures to deliver. So I think it's going to explode in the face of whoever's holding the FTD, holding those swaps at this point. And I really don't know how those weird equity swaps, the ones where the market maker shorts the stock, but the short hedge fund rents the liability from the market maker. So neither of them report the short because neither of them technically shorted. And I don't know, like Citadel is not going to if Citadel shorted that stock and they have one of those short hedge funds that's paying for the liability, Citadel's going to make sure that guy pays for it all. Citadel's not going to pay for it. No, they're going to avoid that like the plague. I have no idea how much of those are out there. My guess is a lot that are unreported, and they're probably in huge like equity baskets. So when they short the stock, it's not just an equity swap of GME, it's an equity swap of 100 other stocks that were being shorted, and the hedge fund is like leasing the rights to the profit of that short, thus the liability, and it's gonna be weird. I am really curious to see how this shakes out in the end. I have no idea. There are stocks I've probably never heard of. They're going to explode. And we're going to go, oh, wow. Huh. How about that? Never knew that stock was that shorted. Never heard of them. They make, washer fittings for, widgets or whatever. But yeah. Excuse me. So, yeah, we're in for a weird show. This summer is going to be absolutely bonkers. Chris R says B big earnings are today. Ooh, let's see what those are all about. Okay, I'm scrolling down to the bottom. If I missed your chat, I'm so sorry. Try to get to folks that are at least still here in the chat before I've got to run at 2 o'clock here. Whenever I take my allergy medicine, that's why my throat is starting to remember. Lady Kim, did Monkey Butt get a new pal? Yep, Monkey Butt got my sister's dog. You guys, you have not met Snoopy yet? Snoopy dog, come here. Come on, Snoopy. Come on, Snoopy. So this is Snoopy. This is my sister's behemoth of a dog. You look up, Snoopy. Look up. There we go. He's a big Pyrenees Bernese doodle. He's sweetheart, dumber than dirt, and wants to eat every dog that he sees. He tried to eat Monkey Butt, but Monkey Butt actually kicked his ass. Even though she's smaller, she's way stronger than he is. So he respects that. So my sister got called up by the Navy, and so I'm watching him for the next 6 months. She's Navy Reserve, and she knew she was going to get called up eventually, but she thought it was like a year from now because she's up for a promotion and they had to make her take a command to do that. But I think with global events that they're like, oh, we're going to do that now. So they called her up, and you've been chewing that bone. You bits of bone it's all over your hair. You were just covered in bits of bone. You're gross. You are a gross big dog, aren't you? So yes, so that's Monkey's new buddy. All right. Rainbow Girly, yes, this is live chat, but you only get me live for another 5 minutes because then I got to take these freaks out for a walk with my neighbor. And yeah, oh yes, that's what you want in reality. Okay. Kira, do you still hang out with your original exit strategy, and will you stream MOAS? Yes, and some of the time. If things are super important, I'm not going to pay attention to you guys. I'm going to pay attention to my trading app and dealing with that. I'm like, oh, I'm going to answer your question, and I just lost $100,000 because of answering your question. I will probably be streaming during some of it, not during all of it, because I gotta make that nut just like the rest of you, right? So there you go. Okay. William Morgan, Super Steve, they only recall real shares. Yes, that's true. They will only recall the shares that were lent out by institutions or funds. They won't do a recall on the synthetics that were sold naked. That's the stuff that will result in liquidation by the brokerages. If they can't deliver the PILs, the payment in lieu, the shares that they're supposed to give, then the brokerage has to liquidate that hedge fund until they have enough cash to buy those shares. And if they liquidate them out of existence, then it's going to go to the prime broker and the investment bank that was lending margin. And those are the guys who have to get liquidated next to pay for it all. So yeah. Grandpa Barney, what's her name? Snoopy's a he. He's a big boy. Snoopy is the name. I just usually call him Big Dog because he's a big dog. He stands upright. He's about, I don't know, 5'9", 5'10" on his hind legs. He's a pretty tall guy. He's very long. He doesn't weigh very much though. He's only 100 pounds, but he looks bigger because he's fluffy. But he's kind of anorexic. He doesn't eat that much. He takes monster dumps though for not eating that much. Okay. Robin Hood. Oh hey, good to see you. Have you looked at Our Place? I don't know what Our Place is. Out on Reddit? Well, I don't know what that is at all. So I don't know what Our Place is. I don't know. Our Reddit. Reddit.com/place. Our Place is I'm just going to close that. Day 4, place on today, coordination mega thread. I updated Our Place in Minecraft, the second version that stacks blocks when they change. I have no idea what this is. This place makes no sense to me. What is... Someone visited camps before, a place where togetherness created more, blah, 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 blah. I have no idea what this is. Building block of everything. Despite all the battles, been great in our place, bring nations together. I don't know what any of this is. So, looks like... I don't know. So I just visited. I have no idea what this place is for. There you go. Okay. Oh, what's her name? Oh, you asked about my neighbor. Oh, my neighbor's name is Haley. She's a friend of mine. She actually lives in Spain. She and her boyfriend came and visited me and went skiing for a few days when I was in Switzerland in January. But she's back hanging out with family for a little while, and then she walks her mom has an absolutely insane Catahoula named Hawkman, and Hawkman and Monkey Butt are just boyfriend and girlfriend. And the big dog tries to eat Hawkman, and Hawkman tries to eat the big dog, and they've mellowed out a bit, so we can take them for walks now. They kind of understand, like, oh, we're part of a pack, and we can't eat each other. So yeah, Snoop identifies as a dog. Okay, it's 2 o'clock. I gotta get going, folks. Look for me either tomorrow or Wednesday with Lightning Warrior. I'll do a regular show on Wednesday, so I'll see you then. And that's all I've got. All you dogs, ready to say goodbye? You guys are just like napping until it's time to go. Miss Missy, one more personal question. Do these dogs sleep in bed with you? I sleep with 150-pound Noof as a teen and woke up with bruises. Can't imagine these two. Yeah, they basically sleep on top of me. And the big one likes to sleep with his head just going in my face. He's a big cuddler. Yeah, they sleep with me. What else am I going to do? Listen to him whine all night? And then I won't sleep at all. Okay. See you guys Wednesday. If not tomorrow night with Lightning Warrior, right? Okay. One of these. And later.